positioning of the sun, everybody. The name's Blue Fang, and much like with Psychonauts, since I finished up Banjo Kazooie, I think it's about high time I ranked the game's levels. So that's what we're gonna do here. We are ranking every level in Banjo Kazooie. Two things. One, Gruntilda's Lair and Spiral Mountain will not be counted. When I say level, I mean you have to get 100 notes, 10 jiggies, 5 Jinjos, and 2 empty honeycomb pieces in it. Since Grunty's Lair and Spiral Mountain don't fit that criteria, they are not counting as final levels. 2, I realize I didn't make this known in my Let's Play, so I'm going to say it right now. I don't really think you needed the grunty boss fight. I think it could have been ended just fine if you left it at Furnace Fun and she was defeated that way. You save Tootie, she clearly doesn't come back when you hit save and quit. I honestly don't know why you needed to fight Grunty, but whatever. Anyways, mini rant done. It's time. Let's get down to number 9, Free ZZ Peak. Now, yes, I immediately know that the fan consensus is that Free ZZ Peak is not only the best level in this game, but apparently is the best level in the entire game. But I do have problems with it. First off, the ice physics. Yes, I do get that you can kind of circumnavigate them with the Talon Trot ability, but that also makes you move faster, so you kind of just gotta, work with the faster movement to just lose slip, which is in and of itself a loss of control. I'm also going to state right now that the Walrus form is the worst Mumbo form, as it only really provides you with one benefit, and even then, once its benefit is over, there's nothing stopping you from going back to being Banjo and Kazooie. And especially when you compare it to all the other forms, like the Termite form lets you to stick on walls. The Crocodile form has an attack. The Pumpkin form is required to get to certain areas. And the Bee form lets you fly. The Walrus form is by far the worst one. Boggy is just a shithead dad, and I hate those characters. But the biggest reason, and the only reason why it's down in last, is my OCD. If you do these levels in the intended order, you can't do like I do. No matter what, you cannot get everything in Free ZZ Peak in your first run. Free ZZ Peak kind of ruins the rest of the levels because you want to do everything in one run? Then alright, why don't I just go to Gobi's Valley and get the turbo running shoes so I can get everything in one run. But you need the beak barge to get everything in Gobi's Valley. And there are notes that you need the beak barge for. At least with Free ZZ Peak, you need it to just get a Jiggy. But there are notes you actively need to get with the beak barge. So then you're ruining another level and you have to redo more if you don't do Free ZZ Peak first. And it bothers me because every level in this game, you can end it by getting all 100 notes, all 10 Jiggies, and all the empty honeycomb pieces. I hate the fact that this is the grand exception to that rule. And that's honestly the big thing that bugs me, is just that damn exception. If you really were able to collect that final Jiggy on your first run, then I would have this level placed higher. Not significantly higher, but I certainly would have it placed higher than dead last. But yeah, for my OCD alone, I can't have Free ZZ Peak as anything more than dead last. But of course, this is my list, and that's the subjective opinion. We're going at the objective opinion. It's number 8, Rusty Bucket Bay. First off, you gotta go to Chad's party. I mean, come on, it's Chad. You gotta go to his party. But what I'm really here talking about is the massive difficulty jump that is Rusty Bucket Bay. I think that the last 3 worlds, Mad Monster Mansion, Rusty Bucket Bay, and Click Clock Wood, are all difficult worlds, but all for very different reasons. Like, Mad Monster Mansion can be a difficult world, but it also requires you to use your critical thinking skills to think of where everything could be placed and recognize patterns. And in that sense, it's the easiest of the difficult 3. And Click Clock Wood is just a marathon. It's harder because it's the longest world in the game, and especially in the N64 version, your nerves can kind of settle in for you. Rusty Bucket is just hard, and there's no other way to put it around, especially the engine room, where one mistake and you're dead, even in the Xbox version. I have to imagine how many kids who played the N64 version did everything and did everything first, saved the engine room for last, and died almost immediately in the engine room. And Bottle's going, "Wow, you got 88 notes as your new high score." And plus, with the engine room being home to two of the Jiggies, one of them being unanimously considered the hardest in the game, Rusty Bucket Bay is just a difficulty jump for all the wrong reasons, and in a way that the game doesn't prepare you for. I most compare this to the Meat Circus and Psychonauts, but even then, the Meat Circus was not that hard. Looking back on it, it was just that one jump that gave me so many struggles in that video. And in all honesty, if I could download that video file again and cut out like my majority of failed attempts, that video would probably be a lot shorter than it actually ended up being. But yeah. Also, the oily water was very, very stupid. Like, already in the surface, you're losing air and you can't refill it, but when you go under the water, you lose air twice as fast. I don't care. Have one gimmick, not both. Preferably the double air gimmick, but at least let you surface and refill it. But regardless, Rusty Bucket Bay is just a stupid difficulty jump that the game in no way prepares you for, and in most people's opinion is the objective worst level in this game. Do I agree with that opinion? No, because Freeze is a peak, but nevertheless, I see why it's made. But moving on to slightly better pastures, at number 7, we have Bubble Loop Swamp. I'm not a fan of swamp settings in video games. I don't think that a swamp can really be done in a good way. And Bubble Loop Swamp is just the epitome of that opinion, because I think it's just, especially compared to what this game does with other level types, it's just so generic. I mean, even Rusty Bucket and Freezy Peak levels below it are less generic than it. But yeah, just a plain old swamp. The crocodile form is nice though, considering it's the only form that comes with an attack and lets you immunity to piranha water. And speaking of the piranha water, this is kind of the start of when Bottles' moves stop becoming cool fits for your cool actual moves that Banjo and Kazooie can do, and more just the floor is lava, so here's how you avoid it this time. This is when you get the wading boots. Mr. Vile is a remembered part of this stage, but for all the wrong reasons, though. I don't like Mr. Vile, and he's the main reason I dread coming back to this level. But in short, I could be starting up a new playthrough of Banjo-Kazooie, but when I get to Bubble Gloop Swamp, if it makes it... What I'm essentially trying to say here is, if I get past Bubble Gloop Swamp and make it into Freezy Peak, at this point I'm essentially like, alright, I know Freezy Peak sucks, but at this point I'm too far in. So Bubble Gloop Swamp is the mark of whether or not I'll finish a playthrough in this game. More often than not I don't, because I find it so damn generic. But then there's Freezy Peak and Rusty Bucket. Anyways, moving on to number 6, Click Clock Wood. Like I said earlier, when it comes to difficulty, I do think that this is the second hardest game. This is the second hardest world. Although, I also think the difficulty significantly jumps if you're playing the N64 version, as this is a marathon for the notes if you have to get it all in one run. I think this one straddles the border of being an interesting challenge getting all the notes in one life, versus just being bullshit like Rusty Bucket Bay's version is. The tree climb can get a bit annoying, especially with the big pecker fuckers that are on the tree. And in the seasonal layouts, it definitely comes with the... I do like the seasonal layouts, though. The seasonal layouts definitely help you traversing this tree feeling a slight bit different with time travel. Spring is my favorite song, although winter is my favorite to traverse. And I do enjoy the setting up of the Jiggies. Like, you'll do an action in spring and it'll open up something in summer, and you can do something in summer and it'll open up something in fall, and so on and so forth. And I think that's really cool, how later and later on you go, you can see your work pay off in the time travel aspect. And I do think that's cool, but ultimately, this level's big problem and why it's down so low is just that it's so damn long. At this point, it ultimately feels like you're playing it just to get to the finale, which I like Furnace Fun a lot, as I said earlier in this video. I'm not sure about the Grunty boss fight, but I personally think you could have just ended it with Furnace Fun and called it a day, and I would have said good finale. But nevertheless, Click Clock Wood is here, and I do have to give it some credit for that. Coming in at number 5, we have Gobi's Valley. I don't know what it is with video games in desert settings, but I guess since the desert's such a perilous place that you can do it, and it would make sense. The first thing notable to say about Gobi's Valley is that this is the home of the last bottles moves, the turbo trainers, which will cause you a lot of trouble if you don't know where they are. And considering that Freezy Peak needs this, yeah. I automatically kind of had this level lowered opinion because of associating with Freezy Peak. But I'm going to ask about this. Am I the only one here who thought on their first playthrough that these sand hills required the wading boots because they were sliding down and didn't realize you could just talon trot across them? Until I tried it and I was like, oh, that actually works. Like, that's so misleading to me. We also get the return of the worst camel, of the worst person that for Ipa to have. It's Gobi. He's almost bad as Jean Bisson from Sly Cooper, but at least Jean Bisson ended up joining them. Gobi's just gonna be like, nah, 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 I'm gonna cause you to drought. I don't remember what the word is for when you die from lack of water. But yeah, that's kind of it. Gobi's Valley is just a middle of the road level for me. When I get to Gobi's Valley, I'm just much more excited about a level that's coming up way later in the list. But way earlier in this game is Mumbo's Mountain. For Mumbo's Mountain, I have to put some respect on its name for it being a tutorial level. I like it as it's a brilliant playground, considering that you get all your basic moves in Spiral Mountain, and this level is less designed to be an actual level for the game, and more designed to be a playground for those moves alongside 3 more moves that will be very essential. You do get your first Mumbo form in the Termite, and you do get 3 essential Mumbo bottles powers up, but the short playtime that's really required to complete it does kind of make this like a good speedrunning place. Like, if you've already played this game so much, it's just so fast to complete, especially if you bolt right for the Talon Trot, that it should honestly take you no more than 15 minutes if you have a general idea of where things are. But nevertheless, Mumbo's Mountain is a fine level and a great starting point. I have to put, and even though there are 3 levels I like more in it, I do have to put some respect on its name due to the constraints of it being a tutorial level. Now, moving on to number 3, the levels and placement for number 3 and 2 can swap around because I did honestly have a lot of debate with this. But one is objectively better than the other, but the other one I subjectively enjoy more than it, so I ultimately went with my subjective opinions. And at number 3, we got Treasure Trove Cove. The sandcastle floor here is iconic. Everyone knows codes. The codes that you can insert, like blue eggs, red feathers, gold feathers. Now here's a nice ice key which you can have for free, or something like that. I do have to enjoy the 2 new powers, the flight power and the shock jump, which also just do feel essential. But Treasure Trove Cove is your introduction to how levels truly respond, and with your last power-ups that are kind of just like major and you'll see everywhere, like the flight and the sock jump. Now it does make it interesting, like, this is what a real Banjo-Kazooie level looks like. But I will say the thing that holds me back from enjoying this is Snacker. Him just interrupting the music every time you head into the open sea just annoys me to no end. But nevertheless, Treasure Trove Cove is down at my number 3. 3 spot. Not a bad place to be. At number 2 was a level no fan of this game was ever going to expect to be this high. But, hey, it's my opinion. Clanker's Cavern. I'm going to say this up front. I do like water levels more than the average person. But Clanker's Cavern is such a unique spin on a water level that I had to respect it and appreciate it off of this alone. A sewer grater that you can kind of swim into inside the fish's skull. This might be my Spectrum talking, but that honestly sounds pretty cool of a level. The Jiggy for freeing Clanker is honestly kind of nerve-wracking, but it's also not that hard to do in the grand scheme of things. And it's not like and even in the N64 version, it's super easy to just bolt for that and avoid the notes if you don't feel comfortable doing it, and then just go back and get them later. I mean, hell, I think that's what I did in my LP. Clanker himself, although is a character I do feel very sympathetic for, because Grunty's garbage disposal that just wants fresh air. Yeah, oof. And the Wonder Wing is a power up that I do like, but I more like it later in the game. I do have to respect them giving you the ability to just use invincibility on a timer instead of getting lucky to find it. But all in all, I enjoy Clanker's Cavern far more than the average person, and I have a good time swimming through this level. And it's my second favorite level, and often tends to be the last one that I truly enjoy, considering after is Bubble Gloop and Freezy Peak. But speaking of peaks, the actual peak of this game, number 1, Mad Monster Mansion. First off, yes, this might be the third hardest level in the game, but the challenge that it is feels completely fair. It's not a difficulty. Like, the only real bullshit difficulty spike would just be that they have enemies that require you to use invincibility feathers to defeat, but even then they're more than manageable if you don't use them. Use them here. And the other main challenge is just using your brain to find all the unique little nooks and crannies where they hid stuff for you to go find it. And considering that that's where the challenge is from in this game that already kind of trained you to do that, this is where I feel like, okay, I get where you're coming at. It feels fair. It feels like, okay, that's my fault. That's my fault for not experimenting and seeing, like over here in the mansion is the windows, for example. You see some are boarded up, but then some have lights, and not trying to break the glass. Like, when I first did that on my playthrough, I was like, oh, okay, so that means all the windows like that I could break, and it made sense. It clicked. It felt good. This game is like a puzzle, and it gave you all the pieces. It just waited for you to assemble it, and that was cool. Cool to me. This is also the first level that you have with all of Bottles' moves. Gobi's Valley teaches you the last Bottles move, but this is the first one where you do puzzle solving with those moves, so it just adds to, again, that feeling of the game gave you all the puzzle pieces, now it's up to you to assemble them. And I like the fact because it never feels like... Because it's not like Rusty Bucket where it feels bullshit if I lose something or couldn't see it or couldn't get it. This time around, it's all a puzzle. I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. And then boom, I do it. And the pumpkin form, despite being almost having the same playability value as the walrus, the pumpkin form actually does end up being a necessity, so it's automatically ranked better than the pumpkin. Oh shit, did I forget to talk about the bee form in Click Clock Wood? Whatever. We're over here at Mad Monster Mansion. Since we're at the pumpkin form, I guess I can do a rankings of all the forms. So there's termite. Okay, we have the termite form, the crocodile form, the walrus form, the pumpkin form, and the bee form. So number 5 is the walrus form. Yeah, number 5 is the walrus form. Number 4 is the bee form. Number 3 is the termite form. Number 2 is the pumpkin form, and number 1 is the crocodile form. That's the one thing Bubble Gloop has over these levels. Man, with all this ranting on Bubble Gloop, it makes it sound like I hate that level more than the other two. But nah, I don't like that. Anyways, yes, Mad Monster Mansion is the best level in the game, and I will stand by that opinion, and it's not just because I like Luigi's Mansion series. But yeah, I guess this concludes my ranking of the Banjo-Kazooie levels, and this will probably be my last video on Banjo-Kazooie for a long while. So if you didn't like all my fever on that, don't worry. You don't have to deal with it for much longer. And with that, I'll end this video by saying what I normally do. The name is Blue Fang, and I bid you all a good West Michigan summer, buddy. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.